All right. Dove and Raven.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Dove and Raven. So, Dove, your father
Yeah.
is, how would you describe yourself, Raven? You're not transgender, are you?
No, I'm just a unique person. I'm an individual.
And you've always been this way?
I've always been a very unique individual, yes, even
She-
since I was a kid. My parents were unique people, so I had an interesting childhood.
How did you grow up?
Well, when the year I was born, my parents started a natural food store in California. It was, the early 70s. They were, trying to do something new at the time. So I was raised by them. But they split up when I was young. My dad stayed in the business, the health food, eventually became religious. My mother stayed more on the wild end, and I lived with her a lot. So we got to travel around quite a bit. I went to a lot of different schools and saw a lot of crazy, wild stuff in the 70s as a kid, people partying and wildlife and stuff. So that was kind of how I grew up partially.
She started doing psychedelics very young.
Yeah, I grew up, experimenting in psychedelics, smoked marijuana and stuff. Yeah, and my father's side of the family were conservative, and I got a lot of balance and good, solid stuff from them. And my mom's side of the family too, very loving people, very extraordinary personalities. So I got a lot of good stuff from them. But yeah, there was some rough things, experiences and stuff, I guess, that could have maybe helped add to the wildness of my life, I guess.
Like what?
Just growing up as a kid on the streets a lot. I was a skateboarder, young skateboarder, so I'd go out on my skateboard and, get wild and explore the world.
Like any kid?
Yeah, except I got maybe a little more freedom than some kids, and just the pattern of my life since I was young was a little, my parents may not being more like hippie types. I wasn't, immunized or circumcised or any of those kind of things, so I was just a little more innately wild, I think, anyways. And then them being kind of open-minded, they gave me a little more room, maybe. But yeah.
And then you had me. How old were you when you had me?
29 when you were born.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dove, what do you remember about your childhood with your dad?
My mom was very motherly. My mom was like 23 when she had me, and you were a few years older. And they were very eccentric, like definitely hippies. Definitely hippies. And we moved around a little bit, and then
This is where?
this is in Central California by the beach in a small town.
Okay.
Yeah, small town. And then my dad transitioned a little bit during the time of my parents splitting up to a woman and got top surgery and changed her name and changed their entire identity. And then my parents split up, and me and my mom and my brother moved to Northern California. And
And you were how old when your dad transitioned?
it started when I was pretty young. I couldn't really even tell you like an exact time because it went in phases. So she would start cross-dressing, and then sometimes she would stop and be like, okay, I'm gonna be masculine again. And then she'd start cross-dressing again. And when I was very young, I didn't really see it as that weird, because my mom wore skirts, I wore skirts, my dad wearing skirts, so it was just like, okay, people wear skirts. Like, I didn't think like men were not supposed to wear skirts or dresses. But then when she changed her name and stuff, it was very like strange. And I remember when you told me that you were a female soul trapped in a man's body, and that really freaked me out because I was very young. And I was like, I couldn't even comprehend that. That didn't make any sense. I was like, what? Like, how could a soul be male or female? It didn't make any sense. So it was very strange.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I used those exact words.
I
maybe.
remember
Okay,
on the way
maybe
home
I
from
did.
school, like that phrase.
Do you think it impacted your childhood?
For sure. That phrase really, I was like, whoa, like female soul, male soul, like what? Trapped
I
body?
probably did use that phrase. But I probably was influenced. It wasn't probably something I originally thought of on my own. When I first started going online, when I got access to the internet, I got a lot of information about transgenderism and transsexual that I had never encountered before. It was a subject I'd been aware of since I was young because of hearing about cross-dressers and transvestites and how they were weird or whatever. But I knew that I enjoyed women's clothes or women. I mean, I liked everything about women. I really could identify with, I cried easy with movies, all that stuff. So to me, and I guess I did identify with a female spirit, but not now. I don't see it any different than a male spirit. I think Dove hit it when she said, "How can a soul be male or female?"
Because at that time, it wasn't very common. Like, it wasn't really talked about.
It was very
and it was
confusing.
more like
Yes,
the separated, like a man is like this, a woman is like this.
it was still like that. This is like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You're just ahead of your time, maybe.
I was a little ahead. I was a little behind and a little ahead, both.
Because now I see lots of.
Yeah, no.
Young
When I
men.
did it, it
For
was
sure.
a scandal in the community.
It
Let's
was
say.
a small town.
Yeah. So,
It was very brave.
but I felt like it was the only way I could be on. Like, to me, hiding the way I felt wasn't really an option. And I had, since my early 20s, been wearing unisex or even female clothes. I would dress however I wanted to. I might have a beard, but I'd still wear a skirt and like a little lacy thing on my head or whatever, because to me it was all part of the magical, my own unique expression. But when I became with her mom and had to be the man and then had a kid, then I got really into the masculine being the man thing. But I was still able, when I was home with her mom and stuff, to wear skirts and dress. She was cool with that. She was used to the Grateful Dead culture where men wear skirts at the concerts and spin around, so.
Your ex-wife was.
She
Yeah.
didn't know it would go that far.
Yeah. She didn't know it would go that far, and I didn't either. And it didn't have to, but it did. Things can go a
Was
lot
it-
of
She
different
was like,
ways.
I'm gonna see how this goes.
Was that the cause of your divorce?
Well,
One of 'em.
This is what happened. We were definitely already, we'd been 9 years together, and we'd had 2 kids, and the second kid was a lot of work, and we were starting to grow apart in our value. We could realizing our values were a little different after 9 years, and there was things. I was really getting into being vegetarian. She was really wanting to eat meat more. It was that kind of thing, little things like that. And things about my lifestyle, again, were very. I was a total outlaw kind of person,
The work, what you do for work.
Yeah, I made my money just totally hustling. I'd sell at the swap meet. I'd do construction on the side. I'd sell weed. I sold lots. I was always a weed seller, weed grower, whatever. And so that kind of work was hard for her, I think, to see, because when people, oh, what do you do for a living? I'd be like, oh, I'm an outlaw. I do all this stuff. That was not, couldn't take pride in that. And the school that Dove ended up had a lot of really wealthy families in it with nice houses, nice car. They owned this nice, big, fancy, and we were just struggling. I was just a hustler. We were just trying to pay the rent, basically. I had ambitions, and I'd had businesses and stuff, but they'd all everything would just go back to zero, and I'd have to start over, and it didn't bother me at all. I was just doing my thing, I was a collector, and I'm kind of a scholar. I like to study, and I'm a musician. So I was more, I feel the music will come, the money will come someday. Focus on the music. So yeah, her mom wasn't comfortable with that. So we were already growing apart, and I had quit expressing myself femininely in any ways because her mom had started to resent it, because she wanted me to be the man all of a sudden, and she's looking, and that was understandable. So I tried to keep it to a minimum. I was just like, okay, I don't need that for myself. But then I started feeling like maybe I did. I think it's her mom and I, as things really started getting less comfortable between us, I started feeling, there's something missing here, and to close off this part of myself, my being able to express myself in this way, it felt like it didn't feel right. and to just hide it, it felt dishonest. You know, I felt like this is something that I'm supposed to be ashamed of, which means I have to hide it from everybody. So I like have this like dark secret about myself, like I'm this weird, creepy, perverted, evil, bad person because, you know, I like to wear clothes that only females are supposed to wear, and I'm a male.
And you're attracted to men or women or?
Women. I'm attracted to women, yeah.
Even when you're dressed as a woman?
Yes, anytime. I'm always attracted to women. Yes, I love women.
But both.
I can be with men. Yes, I have been with men. I've, and we can get, that might come up more later, but what happened was I got online one day and I read this stuff about transsexualism, and I'd never heard this information before. And it said some people are a female soul trapped in a male body, just like David said. And I wasn't sure if that was exactly me, but it said, you know, and it said, oh, there's also transgender and transsexual. Some people are this, and some it's all the way. But it was mainly pointing in this certain direction. And I was like, huh. And I met with a counselor, and I talked to her, and she's like, oh, we can start you on hormones anytime. I'm like, hey, I was just curious, you know? and so I went and I called her mom one day I had a little office in town, and I called her mom and I said, hey, I've been reading this stuff about transsexuals and transsexuality and transgenderism. I had no idea. I said, but maybe I'm kind of one of these kind of people. Maybe this explains why I like to dress in one color. And I'm so, you know, I cry on the movie. We'd watch a movie and I'd be like sobbing, and her mom would be sitting there going, what's wrong with you, you know? And she just thought I was really, you know, emotional or whatever, and I am. But, you know, again, if you limit what a man is allowed to express and what a woman is allowed to express, then it's like, oh, I'm breaking the rules because I'm expressing things that women are supposed to express and not men. And I didn't like that, I guess. I don't like being limited. I'm looking for, you know, I'm trying to make the most of life every moment.
Your dad is just a free spirit, though.
Yep, absolutely. Very eccentric. That's how I see her.
No, but he's a great communicator. Yeah. He seems very intelligent and
absolutely
great, just lovely to be around.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's much more important than having
a masculine
figure who sometimes is very brooding and won't
I
communicate.
agree, because like I can tell him anything.
Anything.
Like, you know, and she's always supportive of me. Like, it doesn't matter what I do. So yeah, I'm very grateful.
Well, there was some rough years though.
Yeah.
So when I called her mom and told her, hey, I saw this, I'm interested, I thought maybe I'd get like, oh, neat, because she was always open and helped me explore. I mean, her mom helped me do a lot of stuff. She's an extraordinary woman, most extraordinary woman I've ever known. When I called her up that day, I told her, all I got on the other end of the phone was silence. I couldn't even get her to speak. And so I had to go home to talk to her. And when I got there, she'd been crying. And I said, what's wrong? And she goes, what do you mean what's wrong? I feel like you just called me up and told me that you were dead. Or someone just called me and told me that my man had died. And I was like, no, it's still me. It's not like that. And that was it. Like, she never recovered from that shock. We tried. There was a month or two where she's like, maybe, I don't know. But we were so close, her mother and I, and so affectionate in our ways that after about a week or two of it not being that way, all of a sudden, after 9 years, I just couldn't handle it. And I had a little apartment in town where I worked, and I just moved in there. And, you know, I regretted it the day I did it. You know, I didn't think I was leaving my family. You know what I mean? They were still just a couple miles away, and my kids, and but I just couldn't be with their mom, having her all like detesting me.
And you couldn't repress this and be the male figure.
I could have, maybe. I was open to it. I was just like, hey, I just want to explore this idea, you know. But to her, it was just devastating. There
were layers to it.
There was layers, but it was mainly, it really happened in this one, like, about a month period. There was the reveal, and then after about 2 weeks, me moving out. And then even after I moved out, I would come back and sleep there sometimes with her, and we were like, oh, maybe we'll work this out and everything. But the other thing that happened is my father had just died too. So there was, you know, a lot going on there for me too, I think. My mother had died about 10 years before that, and then my father just died. So I was going through a lot of stuff, you know, personally around the deaths of my parents. My father and I had a rough relationship. He was a real man that, you know, pushed me to be real tough and try to do everything righteously. He's a very religious and stuff. So he had been a hippie, and he became a born-again Christian and then went down another path, you know, as far as that goes. Extraordinary man, really helped, you know, a lot of the things that I love about myself, I got to give a guy credit for. He was a great father, despite the fact that he wasn't in my life a lot of the time, but he was quite a bit, as much as he could be, you know. And we always were in touch, even when I wasn't living with him. So, but the influence of all that on me was rough. And also I had been burning the candle at both ends really hard for years, living the life I was. Because not only did I want to be a great husband and lover for her mom, but I wanted to be a great father, which I think I was. I think I was the greatest dad ever, personally. But I was also very obsessed with, I was a book collector, did a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a musician, which you can imagine how much time and energy that can take. And then also side businesses, you know, gardening, farming, all that kind of stuff. Just really burning the candle at both ends. I'd even had a cafe restaurant at one time that would have me up from 6 in the morning till 1 at night, you know, just working. So I probably caused myself some mental imbalances too, just based on, you know, stress and malnutrition and, you know, just overdoing everything all at once. And just thinking I could handle everything, you know, because I just felt awesome doing everything I was doing. I did 3 seasons of Shakespeare repertoire. I did different things like that. So it was an awesome time. But yeah, it ended drastically when the transgender thing came out. Her mom is like,
"Are you happier as a ambiguous?"
Oh, I'm happier right now than I've ever been in my life, you know, and I've mostly been a pretty happy person, except the breakup and the transition were incredibly dark. Like, I mean, I can't even hardly remember it. It was so dark. It was like feeling very suicidal, you know, very confused, very just confused to no end. And I had a really hard time wrapping my head around the idea that her mom did not want to be with me. I just could not, and it was just it's just such a blow to my ego. Like, I just couldn't recover. I felt like that was it. You know, I'd never be with a woman again as long as I lived, you know, because the ultimate woman had rejected me. So that was it.
That they were going down a very traditional family path. So for that to change was really like, oh, that's not what I was expecting.
It was hard for all of us, yeah.
I think it's like there's good and bad out of it. Like, sure. I really love how things are today, but it was definitely hard. Just, different. It was different.
Well, yeah. Once it was clear that we were breaking up and we'd gotten our own places and stuff, and she was still at the school. Like she said, I would go to pick her up at school. And now I'm really experimenting with coming out. So instead of wearing a skirt at home, I'm wearing a little dress and heels and stockings and a purse outfit. Right out into town, you know, because I had to, that was what I felt like I had to do, you know, to come out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I go to her school and I didn't think anything of it because she'd always known that I wore dresses and skirts at home.
What is it about being a woman that is so appealing to you? Because you could find a partner who is as sexy as your whatever your fascination is. You could have a partner that's like that. You mean
find a woman that's attractive to me instead of being an attractive woman?
Why be a woman when you could just hang out with one?
That's how I feel today. But at the time, I guess I didn't feel that way because I was
You had to be one. You want in on the fun.
Well, the ironic thing is I did actually have a few girlfriends after I broke up with her mom and I was transitioning. And they didn't seem to care because I guess I was, even though I would wear a dress some days I'd wear pants. You know, they were girls' pants, but I probably still looked pretty masculine. I hadn't taken any hormones. I still had facial hair. I still had muscles.
Are you taking hormones now?
No, I'm not.
But you have breasts, it looks like.
I do have breasts, yes, but not from hormones. These are, what's the stuff called? Silicone?
Implants.
Silicone.
She was on hormones for a while.
I was on hormones for 10
a long
years.
time.
10 years almost 10 years, yeah. So, and it definitely changes you. It's a radical thing to do.
In what ways?
Well, it makes your testosterone, kind of stop producing, and so it goes way, way down, and it makes your estrogen go way, way up, and so you feel not like an average guy feels, because an average guy feels like testosterone high, estrogen low. So I guess I felt a lot more like the average woman feels.
More emotional?
I guess that's part of it. Yeah, there's a lot to it. We could do a long discussion on how hormones or how taking estrogen affects a man. I guess. I never took testosterone blockers, and part of the reason for that was. So one thing you learn when you go down this transsexual rabbit hole, like if you're online looking about, is transsexuals, they have dysphoria and they're not comfortable with their genitals. They feel like they got the wrong thing down there and they don't like it and they're uncomfortable. I never felt that way. I was always very comfortable with what I got down there and enjoyed it and thought it was great. Even though going through the literature and the transition, I actually tried on that thought and like spent like maybe a week or two kind of like, I detest I need a vagina, kind of thing. But it wasn't really me. It didn't stick.
Maybe you're more of a cross-dresser.
Yeah, I guess you could say so. I mean, but who knows what is a cross-dresser? I don't know. It's,
well, you have breasts, so maybe you're more than a cross-dresser.
Maybe I'm more than a cross-dresser. I don't know.
And I remember.
What if I got the breast removed? Then what would I be? Does the outside stuff really matter so much?
It really doesn't matter to you, it seems.
Yeah.
Not that much.
anymore.
I mean, I prefer to lose the breasts now just because they get in my way and they're big and bouncy and maybe it makes girls uncomfortable sometimes if they notice I got boobs and I'm flirting with them. I don't know that that's true, but.
But for a while, you
Go
told
ahead.
me that you wanted to look feminine to appeal to men. I remember that a few years ago.
Well, yeah, but that was based on one thing in particular, which is my work. I was working as an escort. So if I said I want to look beautiful to appeal to men, it was definitely only because of
Just
that.
for money.
Well, okay, for money, for work, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame to make money that way, I think, but it was great for me for many years.
You wouldn't want your daughter doing it.
I would not want my daughter doing it, no. And I don't really, honestly, I will probably not be doing it. I still have clients, but I don't do it the way I used. When I first started doing it, it was like a real desperado. I mean, I would see anyone, I would try, I was just trying to survive. I'd gotten down to where I was, I couldn't even drive my car. I was literally living on my bicycle out of a backpack, sleeping on the ground. So I got down to that low and I thought, I'm gonna do what I need to do. And I knew someone and I'd worked as a stripper. When I was with her mom, I'd worked as a male stripper. So it was already, her mom knew that and we were all, in the game with it. But
Not very traditional male and female route.
traditional, but open-minded. So I'd worked as a male stripper, so it was easy for me to go, okay, here's a way I can make money without having to be discriminated against or whatever. You know what I mean? I was just able to, I had a friend in the business, she's a dominatrix. She helped me get set up with some advertisements and boom, I was on my way and I made great money. So, and I was still able to have the freedom that I so much love. And at the time I had started estrogen. And so being sexual with men was actually, I did enjoy it. It was pleasant. It was exciting. It was new. It was different. And it was a grand adventure. It was really awesome. I would have no regrets at all, but of course I do have that, the most depressing thing wasn't the breakup with her mom and the transitioning, which was the darkest time of my life, but it was that for years after that, I was very alienated from my daughter. And that kept me in a lot of turmoil at all times because I just felt like it was not fair. I felt like I was really trying to be honest and do the best I could, and I had never wanted to leave living with her. And I had made so many attempts to tell her mom, hey, let's get together, let's work this out. Even before I started the hormones and dressing so much, I said, hey, I don't know what this means. Maybe I just need to dress a little more feminine or something like that, you know. But
is this something you had as a teenager?
Yeah, I first tried on my sister's clothes or something when I was 13 or 14, and that's how I discovered that it was erotic, you know. But I had sexual stuff with other children and older children since I was very, very, very young, you know. And again, growing up with hippies, I saw people. So sex in the sex world was, I got very active sexually as a young teenager with other ladies, you know. And so that was a big part of my life in general, I guess you could say. Very sexual person. But the cross-dressing was only a little thing when I was a young teenager. And then when I was in my 20s, I started, but not sexually, I'm going to go inside and while I look at a porn mag, look at my sister's panties or something like that. It was more like...
well, you got into the church too in between that time.
And I had also gotten in, I've had a time where I studied and did some really dedicated Christianity. So anyways, in my 20s, when I got real free and I was, you know, Grateful Dead and hippie stuff and living off the land.
Drugs have been a part of your life or no?
What's that?
Drugs have been a part of your life other than the acid and weed?
Mainly just a marijuana smoker. You know, in my young teens, I tried just about everything. Probably once, and just, you know, saw some people have horrible things. I got real sick myself once when I was 13 and almost died. So I kind of learned my lesson young. So I've never been into hard drugs since then. I've experimented a little bit. In my teens, I experimented a lot with LSD and mushrooms and stuff. Since then, I've experimented a little bit with some psilocybin, you know, had acid a couple of times in my 20s, but that's it. I'm pretty much just...
It's really just, this is your personality.
Oh, okay.
I'm just trying to figure out what...
Yeah, no, I'm an unusual person, I'm sure.
Only in California.
Yes.
Born and raised.
Yes.
You couldn't do this in Kansas.
Lived in Hawaii for a few years as a kid and got to see some real wild freedom over there. Yeah, so the cross-dressing, again, in my 20s, I just took it on as a style, you know, because I've always had this kind of fantasy image. I'm an idealist, and so I've always grew up with fantasy, and you see these old pictures of warriors or knights or whatever with their long hair flowing back, you know, and they've got some waving fabric or whatever that looks like a dress, you know. So that was always kind of my orientation. I was like,
yeah, but that's a masculine.
Right, but I wanted to look like that cool masculine figure from fantasy who had that.
You kind of do.
And all that feminine
stuff. You got the hair
and I couldn't do it with what they had down at, you know, Miller's Outpost or whatever. I had to comb the thrift stores and find my own unique, you know, style like that. And I guess, you know, even my dad, there's a story. My dad left from where he lived. We lived up in Central California when he was a kid, or early 20s or something. But he hit the road with just his bamboo flute, a Champion juicer, and wearing this long red coat that was his mother's. And he went hitchhiked to New York like that or something.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
so maybe it's in your blood.
Yeah. He used to wear a purple cape for a while, I heard, back in the, you know, this was the 60s. So, yeah, I had some wild blood in me to begin with. But yeah, the cross-dressing just all fitted in. I don't know. I guess my personal idea is that everybody is inherently a little bit bisexual, whether it would be expressed or not. And I just really got tapped into all that stuff. But I'm so, you know, I was a high testosterone, very, you know, an artist and idealist. So I look at women with this, I'd see the beauty in them, and I was just driven, you know, just such a profound draw for me towards that beautiful femininity, you know. And so, yeah, to want to express it myself, you know, I don't know, maybe one time I was trying on some feminine stuff and I looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, you do look You kind of remind me of those beautiful women in the magazines I'm looking at, or something like that. So yeah, it was in there, and it did come out. And in my, like I said, in 20s, I'm just hanging out with other people. I may have a beard, but I'm still dressing like that, and no one thought anything of it. If I would try to mention it to someone, I feel kind of like a girl, or kind of like a man with they would always be like, nah, not you. No way, you're such a man. Even if I was wearing a skirt, that's the kind of reaction I would get. And that was frustrating to me because I wanted people to see me for some reason as more androgynous, how I felt, even though I felt extremely masculine. But it's like, I'm not only the most masculine person you'll ever meet, I'm also the most feminine person you'll ever meet. And that just doesn't come across easy. People aren't ready to experience that. And even if they do, they can't acknowledge it because it's outside of their ken, So what happened after all these, I reached this point where I was such a woman that I didn't have to try to pass as a woman anymore. I'd just go around and people, hi ma'am, hi miss, and guys would be like, check her out and everything. And I was like, I guess I really did it, But through my journeys, all those wild adventures I had working as an escort and traveling all over to see clients and stuff like that, I had some traumatic experiences, and I had my life, and I watched my kids growing up, while I'm living this life, and I have a son, and he's getting to be a man, and I'm like, so it's just started changing and started feeling different, and I just started feeling more masculine too. I practice a lot of hot yoga and stuff like that. And I've done a lot of therapy over the last 10 years. So I just really started getting this feel of none of this matters. What matters is just me and my soul and my life and my happiness, gender and identity and all this. Who cares?
It's a healthy attitude.
Yeah,
And Dove seems to have accepted it.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dove, and she helped bring me back because even though she was still resentful towards me at the time, around 16 or so, she started coming back into my life a little, and that really healed me. I mean, it really healed a deep...
Well, she loves her dad.
There was a deep hole in me. We've had such a great time since we've gotten, to be close friends again.
How did your son handle it?
My son never batted an eye. He was younger, and he's an unusually empathic, sensitive young man. He has just been so loving and loyal to me through the whole, even when she was
because I saw the before and after, I saw the change, and he didn't really see as much of a change. It was just
his dad was always.
He was 3 when it all started.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
No,
she was 8.
It's amazing what a child will just get used to and
he got used to it
as what's normal.
He just loved me the way I was, and I loved him, and we stayed and it was really important to me because she had kind of distanced herself from me. So he was, I just had him, and so that was really, really helpful for me. But as they both got older and I started getting close to her again, it really coincided with me it was like I started growing out of the whole transsexual thing or something, and I suddenly was concerned about the estrogen and the effect it would have on my health and my body long term. And I said, for a few years I had cut way down. They had started me on a fairly high dose, and I'd cut down. And then a few years later, I cut down even more. So I was on a low estrogen dose, but it was enough to keep me very feminine and passing and attractive to men. But I just knew I had to go at one day. So about 3 years ago, I just quit it. And since then, I've just been going back, feeling more and more masculine. Sometimes the whole thing seems like a dream. I'm like, how did I get these boobs? This is really weird. What happened? Where was I for the last 10 years? Because
Dove, how has this impacted your interactions with men in your life?
When I was younger, I didn't really trust men or but now that I'm older, I don't know. I really see everybody just as they are. I don't really judge people when I first meet them. I just see the best in people for the most part, even if I can see that they're not having the most pure intentions. I just see everyone as they are, I guess. So I kind of just I have a positive outlook on humanity.
And now there are guys your age probably that are kind of ambiguous in their
I've met plenty, yeah. And they're all unique. It's just different, whatever age you're at, however you want to express yourself, whenever you want to transition. like it's up to you, but like, yeah, if you're gonna get a surgery that kind of sterilizes you, like maybe think about it for a long time.
I'm glad I
before you
never
do it.
did any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and that, I mentioned I never took the testosterone blockers. So I had started to work as an escort right about the time I started taking the hormones. It kind of coincided. And the hormones definitely helped me a lot. But because I'd started working in that way, the doctor asked me, she said, do you want to take these hormone blockers? She says, because do you want to stay functional? And in my work, obviously, that was a big draw, was that I was a functional person. So she's like, oh, well, you don't have to take them. You can, and then you can get all the benefits of estrogen and yet still be functional, you know. So I'm glad I made that choice, because once I quit the estrogen, everything came back just the way it had always been. I mean, it hadn't really changed that much anyways. So now, yeah, a girl at my yoga studio asked me the other day, she said, what's your pronouns? Do you like he or she? And I said, I really don't care.
Yeah.
It really doesn't
I never
matter
know what
to me.
use, 'cause I'm like, oh.
But if it makes a difference, if I thought it would make a difference to a woman that I wanted to maybe attract, then I would probably choose whatever I thought she would want to hear. So if that means being a man, I would say I'm a man, you know, but I don't want to, I don't feel like I need to try to be like, I'm a man, not a woman, you know, that whole thing. As a matter of fact, what I feel like is I actually accomplished my dream of being androgynous, like of being kind of both. Because my whole thing is how beautiful that a human being could be both and express it all without having to have all the crap that goes, you know, the social crap that goes with it. These, let's call them pendulums of human, you know, endeavor to try to create a system of things that perpetuates itself, whatever that is, like a transsexual or transsexualism or transgender, or, you know, as soon as anything becomes an industry, it's dead. It's too corrupt. And the people of her generation and younger, they know better now. That's why they're like, it doesn't matter. You could be LGBTQRSTUVYWXYZ. It doesn't matter. You know, what matters is the stuff that matters, the stuff that's underneath the superficial layers, you know, not the gender, but things like love and character, right? And values and, yeah, you know, those are the things that really matter.
That's a great lesson.
Yeah, it's been a good lesson.
All right. Well, Dove and Raven, thank you so much for letting us know what your lives are like and how this can even happen. I think it's fascinating.
This is one example, yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, you guys.